There's something especially terrifying about knowing someone has crossed the one line you believed was safe. Your front door. You lock it at night, trusting that's enough to keep the world outside. But what happens when someone decides the lock doesn't matter? Tonight, we're diving into 3 chilling, true stories from people who learned the hard way that a stranger's determination can shatter the thin barrier between safety and terror. Story 1 by Emily J. I've lived in my current house for 6 years, and until this story happened, I never once felt unsafe here. I'm a single mom, and my 9-year-old daughter and I share a small 2-bedroom place in a quiet suburb. Most of our neighbors are elderly couples or families, and the neighborhood has always felt peaceful, the kind where people leave their doors unlocked during the day. It was late fall last year, and my daughter, Lily, was having trouble sleeping. She kept saying she was hearing noises outside her window, like tapping or scratching. I dismissed it as branches or the wind, but one night I decided to check. Her room faces the side of the house, and outside her window, there's a narrow pathway between us and the neighbor's fence. I grabbed a flashlight and went outside. Nothing. No footprints, no animals, no sign of anything. A week passed and I stopped worrying about it, but one night I was woken up around 2 a.m. by a soft thud. I sat up, listening. Then I heard it again, like something bumping against the back door. I crept out of bed, heart racing, and tiptoed to the kitchen. The back door has a small window with a curtain, and when I carefully peeked through, my blood ran cold. There was a man standing there, facing the door, just waiting. I froze. I remember feeling my breath hitch in my throat as I backed away, hands shaking. My first thought was Lily. She was still asleep in her room. Quietly, I reached for my phone and called the police, whispering into the receiver. I told them someone was trying to get into my house. While I was on the phone, I heard the faintest rattle, the back door handle moving. He was trying to open it. I slipped into Lily's room and locked the door, holding her close as she stirred awake. We waited in the dark. I could hear the creaking of footsteps on the wooden deck outside, circling the house. The police arrived about 10 minutes later, but it felt like a lifetime. When they knocked on the front door, I ran to let them in, heart pounding. They searched the property but found no one. Here's the worst part. When they checked the security footage from the neighbor A.'s house the next day, we saw the man had been watching from across the street for almost an hour before he approached, just standing under a street lamp, staring at our house. The police never caught him, and we never saw him again. But every night since, I double-check every window, every lock, and I sleep with a heavy flashlight next to my bed. Because once you know someone out there is willing to cross that line, you never feel truly safe again. If you're enjoying these creepy stories so far, make sure to like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe for more. If you have a terrifying experience of your own, send it to the email in the description below. Story 2 by Michael S. This happened when I was in college. I rented a tiny off-campus apartment, one of those old creaky places where you hear every floorboard move and every pipe groan. It wasn't much, but it was affordable, and I didn't mind the quirks. One weekend, I stayed in to study while most people were out partying. Around midnight, I decided to take a break and get a snack. I walked into the kitchen and stopped dead in my tracks. The back door, which I know I had locked, was standing, slightly open. I felt this sudden wave of cold panic. I tried to convince myself maybe I forgot to lock it, but deep down, I knew that wasn't true. Slowly, I walked over and closed it, locking the deadbolt. I tried to brush it off, but about an hour later, as I sat back at my desk, I heard the faintest creak from the hallway. I turned, expecting to see my roommate, but then I remembered. My roommate was gone for the weekend. I stood up, heart hammering in my chest, and crept toward the hallway. I called out softly. No answer. I grabbed a heavy textbook, the only weapon I could find, and edged toward the bathroom at the end of the hall. The door was shut. It had been open earlier. I forced myself to act before I could think too much, pushing the door open hard. And there, crouched by the bathtub, was a man. He was filthy, wearing torn clothes, and looked like he hadn't bathed in weeks. We locked eyes for a split second and then he bolted, shoving past me and sprinting down the hall. I stood there shaking, adrenaline flooding my body. I called the police, who arrived quickly, but by then, the man was long gone. Turns out he'd probably been lurking in the building for days. A neighbor mentioned seeing someone sneaking in through the basement laundry room at night. Somehow, he made it into my apartment and was hiding there, probably waiting for me to go to sleep. To this day, I wonder what would have happened if I had gone to sleep, or if I hadn't noticed that door open. I moved out by the end of the month, and I'll never live in a ground-floor apartment again. Story 3 by Sarah K. This happened 2 years ago when my husband and I were living in a rural area. We'd bought a fixer-upper farmhouse, trying to escape city life. The area was beautiful, but very isolated. The nearest neighbor was almost a mile away. One night we were woken by the sound of our dogs barking wildly. They're usually quiet, so it immediately set us on edge. My husband grabbed a flashlight and we went to check outside. At first, we didn't see anything, but as we stood on the porch, shining the beam across the yard, we spotted movement by the tree line. Someone was standing there, just inside the trees, watching us. My husband shouted, but the figure didn't move. It was too dark to make out details, but we could tell it was a man, tall, wearing dark clothes. We went back inside and locked everything. I called the sheriff, but it would take them a while to arrive since we were so remote. About 10 minutes later, we heard a tapping at the back door. Not knocking, tapping. We stayed quiet, heartbeats pounding in our ears. The dogs were going crazy, barking and growling at the door. Then, suddenly, we heard a crash from the front of the house, the sound of glass shattering. My husband ran to grab his hunting rifle while I stayed with the dogs. We heard footsteps inside, heavy and deliberate. Someone had broken in. We locked ourselves in the bedroom, whispering to the 911 operator on the phone. The sheriff was still at least 15 minutes away. We heard the man moving through the house, opening doors, going room to room. Finally, after what felt like forever, the sirens arrived. We heard the intruder running, the front door slamming shut. The sheriff found muddy footprints throughout the house, broken glass, and a shattered window. But the man was gone, vanished into the woods. We installed security cameras and motion lights after that, but honestly, we never slept the same again. Out there, in the middle of nowhere, you realize just how vulnerable you are, and how long you might have to wait for help when someone decides to invade your home. Outrow home is supposed to be the one place you're always safe. But sometimes, no matter how many locks you secure or how many precautions you take, someone can slip past them. And once you've felt that violation, once you've heard someone moving through your house who shouldn't be there, you're never quite the same again. Stay safe out there,